let's be clear, being a founder entails like a decent amount of like insanity. You have to be crazy to think that you are going to build a company doing something that no one else has ever done before, better than anyone else has ever done it before, convince people to buy that product that barely exists, and like have some massive outcome.
Welcome back to the Latitude Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Jones, Senior Platform Manager and now Senior Investment Manager here at 43 North. I am sitting across the table from Adam Spector. He's a four-time founder, CEO of Chore, and also a GP at the Autopilot Fund and an angel investor in his own right. 200 investments, 14 unicorns, 8 caught at seed. So for all you people sitting in the back at home, check out the Crunchbase. It's pretty fantastic. Let the people know, what do you do and what's coming up next for you?
Yeah. So what I really day to day, I'm the founder and CEO of Chore, right? We're essentially a fractional outsourced chief of staff to run all of your operations. You need every business in the world needs someone to do operations for them. You need to do it. You need to pay your team. You need to deal with taxes. You need to deal with compliance. You need to deal with equity for startup companies. So HR, finance, compliance, equity, all that needs to be done. That's sort of to me, a business is three key things. One is you have to have a delightful, amazing product that customers love. Number one. Two, you need to actually be able to sell that product, right? If you have an amazing product and no one finds it or hears about it, doesn't matter, right? You need to actually be able to sell it. Yep. But then there's this third part, which is just like run the company. And in my view is the run the company part has been solved. It is a solved problem. You as a founder should not spend any time figuring this out yourself. If you are spending time trying to understand it, learn it, and do that, you're wasting your talent and your skill set on what you presumably are passionate about, which is whatever your company is about. So outsource it. Find a team to go do it. Obviously, you should hire Chore to go do that.
Hire Chore.
But exactly. But even if you don't do it yourself, right? That's that sort of thing. So hire Chore, something I'm big into. I'm a fairly prolific investor. I've done 200 plus investments across a few different funds that I have. Still making strategic investments where I think they make sense, but it's a tough time to invest. I think it's really hard to predict the future given what AI is doing to the world right now. And then, of course, check out my podcast, Entrepreneurial Excellence, to learn more about what makes for other great entrepreneurs. I really ask mostly a lot of questions. So I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to speak a bit more in this case because I'm not used to it. I'm usually on the other side.
So a big reason why I'm in Buffalo isn't necessarily to be the guy in Buffalo, but it's because I grew up in Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah.
Folks, blue collar, we stayed there our entire family history. Mom's teacher, dad did construction, so we didn't really like when I said I wanted to go into finance. My dad had a cow because I was supposed to go to college and become a doctor or an engineer.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I spent my college years though, because I went to a small research school in the middle of Detroit, Michigan called Wayne State University. Really tiny. And so once I decided I wanted to be like in finance and I had this passion for tech too, it was like, what do I need to bring together to make me a candidate that could actually be successful in other locations? And then what experiences do I need to have in order to become like the guy, or at least the guy who can be put in front of a problem that can solve it?
Yeah.
And so like that kind of has been the reason why the whole trek. What has been your experience? Because you've lived that.
Well, before I even answer that, I hope your parents are proud of you, despite not going to do exactly what they wanted.
Yeah, they are.
Right. Good. I mean, look, my experience on that front that you're talking about. I mean, we live in a really cool world in the sense that great ideas can come from anywhere, and great founders can come from anywhere, and we should want those founders to come from anywhere, and support them wherever they are. And it's wonderful that there are programs like 43 North and all these other states who are trying to replicate some form of that and have that ability for people to go get their company started, hopefully have it be part of revitalizing their towns or cities or states. There's always going to be a draw to the big groupings of people, always. Like that's just, even if it was outside of tech, that happens almost every place in the world where the big cities kind of get bigger and there's sort of a tier one city that gets bigger and bigger and attracts more talent and more people and more competition. But at the same time, we're in a global competition. I mean, like it's because I live in San Francisco does not make me inherently a better founder compared to someone who's a founder in Buffalo. Like We both have access to the same internet, the same AI. A large majority of my calls
Same
are
24.
remote. So like it's better weather. I get to go walk outside every day and it's like prettier. And maybe there's slightly better food in San Francisco. I don't really know the food scene in Buffalo. But from a democratization of access, that's what's occurred. Access is democratized. Whoever has the idea and willingness to push themselves can make use of all those the availability of everything, and that is what. And now that's a mindset too, though. That is a little bit different from some places, right? The people in my experience, the people in the Bay Area or New York tend to be the ones who are pushing themselves more because like it's a little bit easier everywhere else. Whereas like New York, you got to be like really scrappy to get by. San Francisco, you got to be a really scrappy founder to get by and be willing to live in like this tiny little apartment with very little stuff because it's so expensive. And just say all I'm going to do every day is focus on my startup. And so there's that sort of proving ground that I think exists. But that mindset can be anywhere if you're willing to sort of harness it.
Yeah, and I feel like when I was doing the prep for the podcast, or the fireside, for everything, and I'm kind of combing through everything I can find about you on the internet, what I
Mm.
found is sort of
What
like
did
a,
AI pull up? I don't know. What
you
you
know,
say?
I
You should have if you didn't.
what's it called? I have to get better at it. What I do is I do like a preliminary perplexity search,
Mm-hmm.
and then do it across socials and across like your socials and whatnot, and then like I'll go in and then A, fact check perplexity and make sure that it's pulling the right information, but also B, like really read through. I think
Thank
that
you.
like that's where you can pick up the nuance that actually makes an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
Like for instance, I think it's really dope that you were actually really honest about the fact that you started from a low base when you 700x'd over a data log.
Yeah,
Like that was a really cool anecdote. I wouldn't have actually, I don't think I would have gotten that context had I just solely done the perplexity
totally.
search. But like that being said though, like you did that at Lift Igniter basically, and you also did the same thing at data log.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a playbook for being able to do GTM and effectively do PLG
Yeah.
kind of before people were talking about
Mm-hmm.
PLG? Like what did you find in those early days of like really effectively bootstrapping at all of these different companies?
I mean, I wish there was some secret to any of this, right? There's not. In the end, like the secret is like hard work. You get down and you go to work. Like I'm gonna go figure out who my customers are. I'm gonna go talk to my customers. I'm gonna build relationships with them, and then and it depends obviously your market, your space, like, but larger enterprise sales, you're there to go talk to these companies and get to know your customers. And sometimes, and this is actually something that I probably fail at to a large extent. Sometimes it's like boots on the ground in a sense. Like you need to show up, right? Showing up is a huge part of building something successful. And that's part of why I came out here, right? Is okay, I'm going to show up. Like you guys made it easy, and thank you for all that stuff to make it easy to come out here. But you have to show up, and a lot of people aren't willing to put in the work or the effort to go do this because there's sacrifices, right? Everything in life there's trade offs in everything that you do. And so in my case, right, the sacrifice is okay. My wife is probably a little bit more mad at me because I'm not there helping with the kids right now. Um, and uh, at the same time, like I think I would tell her, like I'm also home most of the time. I work from home, so like I'm also there a lot. But those are all trade offs, right? And so that's a decision we all have to make as founders in life in general. Is like, what are the trade offs I'm willing to make and the sacrifices that I'm willing to make to get things done? And that's a personal decision, but you can never get mad at yourself if you feel like you're like kind of a logical thinking adult. You can never get mad at yourself for those things. Like if Chore, my company, isn't as successful as I want it to be, I'm not going to blame. There's no one else to blame for it. My only blame would be to myself that maybe I didn't work hard enough. Maybe I didn't spend as much time like doing every single last thing I could to make it a huge success. Um, and that's in I think everyone wants to blame external forces for a lot of things. Instead, I think it's just very much about yourself and where you want to take things.
Yeah, it's true, and like I say, I try to move through life in a similar way, and I'm not saying that just to aggrandize on the podcast, but it's Harry Stebbings had this quote basically where he's saying, like the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I feel as though when we talk about sacrifices too, I'd love to hear this in your mind and for you. Is there and I guess also based on what you've seen too, is there a direct relationship between that amount of success and the amount of sacrifices you're willing to make? Or is it something that's perhaps more pointed where you sacrifice in certain ways versus others?
I think certainly you have to pick your battles in a sense of what you sacrifice and when you sacrifice. But at the same time, there is a level of like the harder you work, the luckier you get, because that is the truth of the matter. Is like if you're in the, there's a baseball game going on outside right now, outside of the offices here. Um, you can't score a home run if you're not playing in the game. So you have to be in the game to get that. And how do you get to be in the baseball game? And it's like it's a semi-professional team out there. How do you become a semi-professional and then professional? You have to work really hard for a long time to get to that point. Um, and so, yeah, like we all see these stories of, Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook out of his dorm room, and next thing you know, he's a multi-billionaire. Like, okay, there are some stories like that where you just kind of get lucky. You didn't even have to work that hard. It just took off. But the large, large, large majority of founders, it was a lot of grinding every single day and a lot of sacrifice. That's what we all have to decide as a founder. And I think there are, so the last part I'll add to that is I think there is a difference between, you just have to decide what you're willing to sacrifice. So for me, I decide like my sacrifice is essentially I only can focus on two things and do them hopefully pretty well. One of them essentially is my job. The large majority of that's my time. Secondarily, like it's the family stuff. And in my life, like very well scheduled. There's not a lot of time in between for friends or hobbies or anything else. Yeah. Like my life are those are the two things in my life. Some people might think that's very kind of two-sided, I guess. But for me, that's the only way I can do those, hopefully in a decent way.
Yeah, I hear it. My brother was recently visiting me, and I don't work. I don't think I work nearly as hard as you. I mean, I do what I do here at 43 North, and we all work incredibly hard at what we do. But luckily, we have this team kind of doing this select group of things. But that being said, my brother was visiting me, and he asked me like, "Oh, do you think that you work too much?" And I was like, I mean, I think that I'm working just enough for the amount of success that I need, and I need to do more. And I think that's going to change and develop with time. And what's changed, I guess, with me in these 26 years that I've had, which is not that many, the conversations around burnout and like actually being able to sort of bounce back from it. I think in college, my ideas were really more so around like feed the machine and it takes diesel and it just goes. Now it feels like sort of self-care. Maybe it's wear out the metaphor more is now more about like keeping the machine oiled and running well. What's been the hurdle for you as a founder, maybe with taking some of the foot off the gas pedal to make sure that you can continue on the road?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the idea of like work-life balance, or maybe a better way to put it is like work-life unity, is a little bit of a joke to some extent. I do think you can have some of that, but it also it's really about discipline in general. So the question you have to ask yourself is, once again, like where do you as an individual want to be in life, and where do you see yourself in the next dozen years? And then you just decide how hard you want to work at whatever your profession is. It doesn't have to be in tech. It can be in anything. Do I want that thing out there, and do I want to get it? And if I don't get it, will I be angry, right? Will I look back in a dozen years, right? So you'll be 38, getting close to 40. Will I look back and say, man, I didn't achieve the things I wanted, and I'm disappointed and sad about what these things are? Because I do think there's a point in your life where it's hard to go backwards. It's hard to restart those things. And as with all things, I use working out as an analogy to some extent. When you want to go run a marathon, you don't just go run a marathon tomorrow. You have to build up to it, right? You got to build the muscle to get there. I think it's the same thing in business. So for me, I've spent years honing a pretty good muscle around kind of work. So you might say like I have a decent work-life balance. I would say I have a very just two-sided thing where it's like work and family. And like I merge those things together. So like that means, as an example, many days I'm like biking my kids to school. Like that's my workout. Like I've taken my kids to school. I get to spend time with them, and I get a workout. So it's a win-win-win all around, right? And I needed to do all those things irrespective of things. Or like I have an under the desk treadmill. So I try every day to use that. In the end of the day, when I don't do it on meetings because it's really annoying on calls. But I'll do it on meetings or when I'm working and just getting through stuff, and I dictate a lot of the things I do because I'm working from home. So I don't even need to type and try to like bounce up and down and type. It's hard. But once again, like it's about you deciding where you want to be and like thinking through that future self. What is that outcome that you want to have for yourself, and making that decision? Where do you, Jeremy, want to be in a dozen years? And are you going to be happy with some version of that outcome? And so for me, like I've generally hit a lot of the goals, not all of the ones that I had. When I was your age, I set a bunch of goals in my mind. I probably didn't write them down, but I should have. But generally speaking, I knew generally where I wanted to get to. And I've hit a lot of those, not all of them. I mean, like, there's an ego part of me that wants to go build the next multi-billion-dollar company. And Chore hopefully can be. At the same time, I also just enjoy what I do every day. And even though it's usually 6 days a week from like 9 a.m. until like 10 p.m. every day, I mean, there's once again some family time in that. But generally speaking, every 6 days a week, I do that. I'm cool with that though. Like, it doesn't bother me. I don't view that as work. I'm like, I got to learn new stuff every single day. And this is freaking awesome. And sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's annoying. There's frustrating things that come up. As CEO, all the problems bubble up to you, and you got to make the tough calls and that stuff. But I also made that choice. Like, no one said I had to start another company. It's my fourth company. No one said I had to go do that. No one forced me to go do it. These are just life choices that I've proactively made as a hopefully mostly logical adult.
Yeah. No, there's a guy I listened to for a while. He was like kind of an old sort of like salesman millionaire, from like circa like 80s, 90s, and name was Jim Rohn. And one of the things that he said was like, never wish for a better outcome, wish for more skills. And I take that for heart pretty consistently. But switching gears, maybe like from maybe the philosophical and maybe more into the just hard, more objective things. So there was a person on your podcast, which by the way, Entrepreneurial Excellence podcast, please tune in. Adam Spector, he's amazing. But
Thanks for the plug.
yeah, of course, anytime. No, but you had someone on your podcast, and sort of he was mentioning, I believe the last name was Tabakawala, and they was mentioning sort of like these 4 factors as far as what he believes kind of makes the best startup, the best founding, the best team, right? And one of them was this idea of resurrection. And sort of being able to come back. But like before I try to maybe ham-handedly explain what resurrection is, explain to me what you got out of that. Like, what was resurrection for you? And then how do you see how that's affected your professional life and maybe the lives of the companies that you've invested in?
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably also butcher it a little bit since my conversation with Rishi, I believe it was Rishi, was a while ago. But I think resurrection as a founder is also a little bit about having a chip on your shoulder. And sort of what I mean there is like, you want to come back from something and try something new. And you need to be like, let's be clear, being a founder entails like a decent amount of like insanity. You have to be crazy to think that you are going to build a company doing something that no one else has ever done before, better than anyone else has ever done it before, convince people to buy that product that barely exists, and like have some massive outcome. Like, how crazy must you be to believe like what BS about yourself that you are so good that someone's going to buy that whole vision and do all those things? So you have to be kind of crazy. And in many cases, like, that's a little bit of a chip on the shoulder as well. And just say like, I'm going to have this big chip on my shoulder to go do this because I'm going to prove people wrong and prove to them that this is something that's real and that should happen. And I think the best founders in many cases have that level of chip in the shoulder, which once again doesn't necessarily make them very healthy individuals. Like, they're not balanced, right? Founders are not all that balanced. I sometimes think I'm pretty balanced. I'm probably too balanced sometimes. Like, I ask myself all the time, am I like good enough to be a truly transformative founder? Maybe I'm too balanced with things. Am I crazy enough to go do this in the right way to build something big? And that's a question that any investor would ask and should be asking, and every founder should be asking themselves, like, are you crazy enough to go do it? Are you willing to put in the time, energy, and effort? And once again, it's not just about building your own company. Like, for you, Jeremy, as an individual, the greatest entrepreneurial story you will ever tell yourself is about your own career, in family, and whatever else you're going to go build someday. And so you decide, how willing are you to put in the time and effort to make that become the reality that you want it to be? Be it building a family or not, be it having a certain amount of money, be it whatever it is. How crazy are you to make the reality that you want exist and become a reality? That's a question. The beautiful thing is we live in America, and that's even a question you can ask, right? That you have the option to ask that question and the abilities to make that a reality if you want it.
Yeah. It's a real point. And honestly, like, this for me, when I benchmark and the things that I look for, there is always a question hanging in the balance, right? Of like, how I could be leaning in more. I could be sleeping less, I could be eating less, I could be doing other things to sort of make this perhaps go better. I always worry about how that interrelates with quality and the quality of output and the quality of work. I'm thinking back to that founder that you spoke to who was sort of working 100 hours a week. If you wouldn't mind, A, recanting that story, but B, maybe pointing out sort of some of the ways that this person could have optimally used their time in a better way.
Yeah, and maybe to go back to the last point for a second too is like I think something that people forget once again, building success in life, however you want to define success, is about building that muscle around what you are doing, what you're good at, and what you want to be. But that muscle is also about building a habit around things. So like, so your point of like eating well and all these other things. Like I talk a lot in my podcast and about a lot of my LinkedIn and social media stuff um, around like I'm pretty disciplined when it comes to like my sleep and what I eat and how I eat, when I eat, all these other things that I've become like fairly disciplined on. And probably most people would say like that's a little bit crazy. All the different things that I do along those lines. And they've taken years to get there, right? Yeah. And a long time in building habits to get to that point. That's something also everyone can do, right? It's I think James Clear maybe was the one who wrote a key book on like habits and but building these great habits is another way that you grow.
Are you able to unbundle a little bit more about like the Adam Spector sleep eat routine?
Yeah, I mean a little bit, sure. I mean the for me, like I try to get like 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night, and I track that pretty religiously. I've done a bunch of have like a bunch of different things, like an 8 sleep, different things to like help optimize my sleep even further. I've tried a bunch of different supplements, and most of the sleep ones don't really work for me, but I sleep decently well. Try not to be. I know very clearly like if I'm working right before I go to bed, it's really hard for me to fall asleep. So I try to stop work at a decent enough time to give myself a little bit of a wind down, not as much as I probably should. Um, Eating wise, like I eat the same breakfast essentially 5 days a week. And it's a very, very, like I would say, I think a very, very healthy breakfast. Um, and, try to like, I'm probably in better shape than I've ever been in my life right now. And part of that's because I eat, I think, pretty well and like really careful about, not overly careful. Like I'm not crazy about it. We're in Buffalo and I can't even call it Buffalo wings, but like we're gonna have wings tonight, right? Dope. Like that's cool. Like we're here at Buffalo, you should have wings.
Yeah, you gotta have fun.
But like I don't eat that normally
Yeah.
on a regular basis because I know it's not super healthy for me. So when I have it, it should be something special and enjoyable. And it's those sorts of decisions that you build up these habits.
But also another reason why I ask is sort of because like along the lines of like all of those different sort of metrics of what makes a good founder, and I don't know if I'd ever put this in a memo, but it's sort of like a soft thesis that I have is that like everyone has a thing. Like everyone has a thing that they're kind of maniacal about in their own specific way. And like talking through that thing and the depth of which they're able to explain it, usually to me, I feel like indicates how much mind share you put towards the details of your life and ultimately the business and what you want to erect. So thank you for sharing it with me. I appreciate it. Going, I guess, but like kind of maybe going back to that idea of, I guess, what like resurrection is and all other good stuff, which sounds now very like, I don't know, dramatic. But as an investor, when you are screening companies and looking, how do you avoid bringing in and projecting on your own founder empathy and your experiences onto the founders that you speak to? Does it ever occur to you? Does it ever happen? I'm just curious to whether or not it's a problem at all.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a problem in the sense that we can't help but look for people who look like us in a sense, and that becomes problematic, obviously, from investing um, in lots of different groups of people who should get investment, because you almost, by definition, like you're like, I was successful, and I know what that looks like because I know myself better than anyone else, and so therefore I'm going to look for someone who looks similar or does things similar to me or says similar things or went to a similar school as me, et cetera, et cetera. And that, of course, perpetuates like a lot of biases, which is problematic in the world for a ton of different reasons. Um, but you also want to think through like, yeah, like I want to find founders who are obsessed with that, who want to say, hey, like I'm deeply, deeply, deeply obsessed with something. So like I should be able to go as deep on key processes at my company Chore as I just went on like my cereal. Like for most people, they probably don't give a lot of thought to what they eat at any meal every day, let alone their breakfast. Um, I have a level of obsession that has made me want to go deep on that. And I think it leads to me being a better leader, a better parent, and all these other things. It sets me up for success because what you fuel yourself with, of course, is how good you can do. But I should be, as a founder, be able to just go just as deep about my product and my team and why we've made certain decisions. So, we talked earlier today about why at Chore we do monthly performance check-ins with people. Like, there's been deep thought about the reasons behind that and whether that's successful, and we test it on a regular basis. Or to your point about that founder who I don't think has things set up right, where this founder, the story briefly was the founder, his team came to us saying like he needs help running his operations because he's dropping balls. Like, people aren't getting paid, things are breaking, our operations are a mess, basically. The founder got on a call with me and he's like, no, dude, like, I don't think there's a problem. I can work 100 hours a week, no problem, and get everything done, including sales. I was interested in their product for Chore, my company. It took him 2 weeks to get back to me with a sales pitch. Or like, that means you're actually way overwhelmed. You're burning yourself out. You don't have enough time, and you're being penny wise and pound foolish as a founder. And so good founders know their strengths, know their weaknesses, and also are really good at delegating. Like, my dream is that I can delegate as many of the things that I'm not great at. Like, I can't delegate being on a podcast to someone else on my team. This should be me. I can delegate dealing with the customer stuff day to day. Now, I still deal with customer stuff. I still am deeply embedded in it. But like, there are certain things that I can do and that other people in the team can do. So finding ways to delegate and be comfortable with that is a key thing. In a quote I think we used to have on our website, we maybe don't anymore. Not really a quote, but it's a I think a good statement we had. But it's basically, when you hire Chore, which is our domain, by the way, hirechore.com. But when you hire Chore, exactly, go check it out. But when you hire Chore, is when you move from being a founder to a CEO. So what does that mean? Founders think they're going to get everything done themselves. They're like, I can do it all. I can work harder than anyone else. I will figure it out no matter what. A CEO says, I'm going to delegate all these things that I'm not great at, so I can focus on the single most important thing that happens to be happening today. It's like, whatever that is, that's what I as CEO should focus on. And everything else, I can hand off to my team. Yep. And that's what a good CEO does. And so I strive every day to be a great CEO. And if I do that, then over time, I believe we will build a successful business.
What do you think are sort of the meta traits of a great CEO versus a good one?
I mean, you need to have some level, once kind of obsession. Like, I keep saying that. So that's one. Two, really good at focusing. Saying really clearly, like, I'm going to focus and get this done, probably to the detriment of other things. But they will focus on whatever is the most pressing, biggest issue, and not the small little things. So in operations, because that's what we talk about a lot, operations to me, for a founder, operations is a lot like the TikTok of the business world. And what I mean by that is, like, TikTok is like empty calories on social media. It's like eating something that, or maybe, you since we're just talking about food, like, and we had some French fries earlier today, right? Eating French fries, they're delicious, but they're not particularly healthy for you. In doing operations is sort of the same thing. It's like, it's not this. It's a distraction. Like, it's not. No, you're not going to get funding from your next round of venture partner VCs because you've built a great operational system. No one's gonna be like, oh my God, we're gonna give you $10 million because you haven't missed a payroll in a year, and your team has been paid the whole time, and your books are perfectly done.
Yeah.
No VC's ever giving money for that. They do not care. They just expect it's gonna happen.
Well, clean data room, nice.
Yeah, right. Which is like great. That's sort of expected, but like, that's not why you're gonna get your next round of funding. Yet there's lots of founders who do that stuff because essentially it's a distraction and they don't want to focus on the hard things. The easy thing to do is figure out, oh, like, I'm getting these notifications from the state of New York about some weird, funky bill situation that I need to deal with. And then you go spend half your day trying to figure it out. And then you tell your spouse and partners or friends, like, sorry, I couldn't hang out tonight. I was really busy at work. And then what did you really do? You wasted 3 hours on the phone with New York State and then another 3 hours figuring out what the issue was. You did work, but it wasn't focused work. It wasn't work that actually moved the ball forward on your company.
Noise, not like noise.
Just noise. It was a waste of time, right? Like, that's the same thing with social media. Like, for me, you saw, like, I have a list of all the stuff I put out there public. I read a lot more than what I even put on that public list, but I spend very little time on social media. I do it for work a bunch, but like, for like personal stuff, very little. Yeah. Because what's the like those are empty calories to me largely. Whereas if I can be learning every day about the state of the art, new ideas for tech, like I send my team a lot of different ideas, which can be annoying sometimes. I try not to overdo it because I'd be careful. Um, that will push the business forward versus being like, look at this really funny meme I saw on TikTok.
Yeah.
Like, what's that going to do for me? Like, it might feel good in the moment, and then I'll feel bad at myself because I'm not on some cool vacation that I saw some influencer who pretended they flew out there on some private jet, but they actually took coach to get there. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they also sent you an email follow up saying, hey, by the way, like book on my travel app, so you get all the places.
Book my travel app and or join my course for only $100.
If you too want to be an influencer. Well, we've chewed through our podcast block, pun intended. It's been amazing having you in the studio. It's been a blast talking to you. And I want to also just put one more thing in. Not only 200 investments, but if for the prying ears at home, 200 investments, but 12 unicorns, if I have the number correct. 14 unicorns, 8 of which caught at seed. What are we talking about? What are we talking about, guys? But we're talking about the Latitude Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. If you are new, thank you for stopping. Please take a seat. If you are returning, thank you so much for making us who we are today. Have a good one, guys. Catch you in the next one.